I can hear you guys now.
Alhamdulillah. That's
Alhamdulillah.
great.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sorry about that. So this is what happens when you're in a new place using new equipment. But inshallah, the intention is that going forward, we're going to try to make the Mecca Center even better for everyone. So this is kind of like our first attempt at that. So I'm actually currently at Brother Mustafa's house right now, and we've been here together all day. Like I've been here since like 10:30 this morning. And so we've been working all day. And so like partially you can see that we have some some setup for recordings and things like that. So we've been together recording and talking all day. And we actually just finished like right before Living Islam started. So Alhamdulillah. So, for those who have joined us, welcome to our monthly gathering of Living Islam. This is actually going to be our last gathering until after the month of Ramadan. So in the month of Ramadan, we don't have Living Islam because obviously at this time, we're probably going to be sitting in front of a plate or something of that nature and then getting ready for Salat al-Tarawih and so on and so forth. So in Ramadan, which is quickly approaching, it's going to be next month, we will not have the Living Islam gathering. And so we won't have another one until April, inshallah. So this is actually going to be our last one until April, inshallah. Um, but also in preparation for Ramadan, we will have additional programming that we will have. So we will have a pre-Ramadan session. We will also have different sessions throughout the month of Ramadan. Um, this time we'll probably do a little bit earlier than right before Maghrib. So these are all upcoming things that we're going to be having. And like I said, I'm currently at Sidi Mustafa's house. And so we are doing some additional work to come soon. I can't tell you how soon it's going to come. It'll probably still be a while before we'll see the fruits of it, but this is the beginnings of trying to do some uh, uh, do some updates to the Mecca Center platform and the like. So getting into the heart of why we're here, again, this is our monthly Living Islam session. So for those who may be new to the aspect of Living Islam, is that I have nothing prepared. And it's great that that's the case because I would not have had time to do it anyway. So this is not a lecture. This is not a Q&A. This is an open discussion. So we've developed the Living Islam for people to have a space to come and to talk about and to discuss and to ask those things that are truly relevant to them in a manner that is informal and that hopefully people can feel safe to have these discussions. And so again, I have nothing prepared. So like I always like to say is that this is more or less going to be what everyone makes of it. So if everyone wants, we can sit in each other's comfortable or uncomfortable silence, depending how you look at it, for the next 2 hours. Or we can have some very engaging and meaningful conversations. And so, that's kind of my little spiel in terms of the Living Islam. And at this point, I turn it over to you guys, and you guys, lead the conversation. And so usually the hardest time is always getting the first brave soul, if there's not a pre-question that's been posed.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
How are you, Ustadh Tariq?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be back again.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, because I have always been working around this time. I could not join, but I have an off day because it's a snow day.
Well, the
Some
snow does have its benefits.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Um, Talking about the month of Shaban, which we just finished our 15 days. I'm just wondering in terms of fasting. One of the sisters was talking to me that she's just have this question that if you do regularly on your fasting, that is Monday and Wednesday, and the 3 days of the full moon, you should just continue, finish. I mean, you can continue fasting all the way until end of Shaban. However, if you are not the monthly regular fasting, you just should take a week break. Of course, that entitles that you have to pay back whatever that you haven't paid, like the fasting, and just take that 1 week break before actual Ramadan come. This is just to prepare yourself. I mean, can you just give me some opinion about this?
Mhm. So in general, it's basically like you described it, is that the scholars they mention that if a person has a regular practice of fasting, like for example, they habitually fast on Mondays and Thursdays, then for that person, as long as continuing that is not going to make them weak for Ramadan, then they continue to fast in that habit that they have. They if they choose that they want to continue to fast Mondays and Thursdays, then they can do that with no problem. So the aspect of not fasting beyond the 15th of Sha'ban is primarily for the person who is not used to fasting. And by them continuously fasting, it will cause them to be weak when the month of Ramadan actually starts. And so, again, if a person has a regular habit of fasting, then they can continue with that habit. If a person doesn't have a regular habit of fasting, then the ulama they say that it's better that that person doesn't fast and just more or less get themselves physically ready for the month of Ramadan. And so. But even if a person does have a regular habit of fasting, like Mondays and Thursdays, for example, they don't necessarily have to continue with that. But again, for that person that has a regular habit, then it's considered to be something that they can do with no problem because their body is used to the aspect of fasting. So fasting should not cause them to be weakened when the month of Ramadan actually does come.
I think that makes sense because yeah, because I heard from one of the sheikh in the mosque also said this almost the same thing that the sister was asking.
Yep. So
Okay.
yeah, so for the person that has a habit, they can continue, and the person that doesn't have a habit is recommended not to, just so that they can have their full strength when the month of Ramadan starts.
Okay. And during those person who like you can still continue doing because this is a good month for blessings and everything to prepare for Ramadan, correct? To do like the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, so the Prophet Muhammad SAW, he advised us not to neglect the month of Sha'ban,
Mm-hmm.
because, for example, right before Sha'ban, you have Rajab, which is a sacred month, and then right after Sha'ban, you have Ramadan, which is the month of the Quran and a
Mm-hmm.
blessed month. And so the Prophet SAW, he advised us to not neglect the month of Sha'ban. And so, it is recommended, like, for example, there's narrations that Aisha radiallahu anha, for example, she used to actually save up the fast that she needed to make up and used to fast them in the month of Sha'ban specifically. But any other act of worship that you do is considered to be good. And then, of course, at this point, we've passed it, but in particular, the Nisfa Sha'ban, the 15th of Sha'ban, that night is also considered to be a good night to do increased acts of worship. So there's nothing that is authentically narrated to do specifically, But in general, anything of good that you could do on the 15th night of Sha'ban is also considered to be recommended as well.
Right, jazakallah khair.
Why? I was just trying something out. Nothing on anyone else's mind? Just want winter over with. Is it snowing in Canada right now?
Yes, but it's slowed down quite a bit. Alhamdulillah.
Oh, so this is a whole North American epidemic. So snowing in the Northeast and it's snowing in Canada. I think
It's
you guys
almost
always get
always
snow
snowing
out
here.
there.
Yes, almost
I was gonna
always.
say you guys always get snow there. Yeah, you should see what happens in the South. They don't know what to do with themselves.
That's very true. I actually lived in like Texas and Atlanta when I was younger, and I was like, "Oh, what is this? They don't know what snow is like, and they're not prepared
Not,
for it, right?"
not at
It's
all.
crazy.
Snow is abnormal to the Southerners, and so they have no clue what to do with it. As soon as any white stuff appears, just shut down the city. We'll come out tomorrow.
It's good if you're a kid, you get school shut down just for a little bit of snow. It's perfect.
Yeah, but that's going away. Like I was talking to, I think I mentioned a few different times, the kids nowadays don't even know what a snow day is anymore because Zoom has taken over. So even on snow days, you still gotta sit in class because you can just log in online. Where when I was a kid, a snow day meant just that, a snow day. That means I get to sleep in and then I get to go outside and play in the snow.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, they have to do Zoom classes now, unfortunately. That's not fun.
Yeah, see, there's a give and a take in everything. So where is everyone coming from? So I'll say calling. I see Lily, Kalima, Sisters I. Are you still in New York?
I'm still in upstate New York. Yes, I'm still in
Uh,
upstate New York. Alhamdulillah. living in a little
MashaAllah.
living in a little small farm, and I'm still working for the hospital. But in the charity thrift shop, which is really big right now. Alhamdulillah, that's what I want to do full time. Non-profit charity, and like what you give, it goes back to the hospital. It's auxiliary and the kids program. So
Alhamdulillah.
it's
At
yeah,
least you get to do something that you actually love.
yeah, alhamdulillah. There's something else that somebody asked me a question. Oh no, I think that one I will ask you a private when the person passed away.
Okay.
There was a question about the other day. The sister asked me if a person. This is because I'm in a hospital environment, and sometimes the RN asks me questions. So I said, I don't know. I have to ask my imam. So because we don't have. I think up there. They want to know in terms of us as Islam, right? If you are a converted Muslim, if you pass away, right? I know that sometimes when we have our Muslim kind of way of how you do the funeral, but in terms of like tokens, like for instance, if somebody has a wish that they want something to be buried with them together, can it be? Is it permissible in Islam? You
To
understand?
bury someone,
Yeah, say
to
like for
bury
instance,
someone with
somebody in your
something.
family give like your child or your son gave you something, a small thing, but she would like that to be buried with her. Is it permissible? Like small things,
I mean, yeah, I mean, more or less, if I remember correctly, it is permissible to be buried with certain things. Um, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there are any specific examples. I just can't remember specifically off the top of my head, but if I remember correctly, you can. Um,
How about your wedding
and
gown?
it's just been so long. You said, how about your what?
Wedding gown. You know how a lot of those Westerns culture, when they passed away, they want to wear their wedding gown and things like that, or satin dress or whatever.
Yeah, so the thing is that when it comes to the burial specifically,
Mm-hmm.
is that like for example, material that you use to be buried in, it
Mm-hmm.
can be different materials. So like if a person wanted to use a portion of their wedding gown or something like that to be a part of their shroud, then it's possible that they can do that. And in general, like I said, if I'm not mistaken, you can be buried with certain things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so,
I'm aware about the
um,
white cloth, like whether you do 3 rounds or 7 rounds, that kind of thing. Wrap three
yeah,
times or seven
but
times, depending on your wish, I think.
yeah, but in general, like if you're going to be buried, like the thing, like you said, it should if you're going to be buried with something, it shouldn't be something that like would be expensive or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
because even for example, um, even when burying someone is that, for example, there's a particular niche that is made for the deceased. And
Mm-hmm.
even in that, like sunnah is that you use unbaked clay. And part of the reason for that is to not be wasteful. That, you can use baked clay, yani meaning cement or bricks, for actual things that people will benefit from. And so a person who's deceased, they're not going to benefit from what is actually buried with them. Um, so just keeping that in mind. But again, like little small things,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be possible, inshallah.
It's permissible. Okay. All right. That's the thing that there was a question around um when the RN asked me. I said I would check because the chaplain, need to know about that too. All right.
Yeah.
I'll let
I
them
mean,
know.
the only thing that a person can be buried with is their good deeds.
Yeah. All right. That's great. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all a good ending.
I know. And the fact is that I'm working a lot in this charity thrift shop. I'm dealing with a lot of I would say, may God have mercy on these people. They keep donating stuff to us, a lot. And sometimes it's really hard, sometimes for us Muslim, to be kind of like receiving those things. I mean, it's good, it's charity, but sometimes when you are spiritually, you could feel, what I mean, the vibes, you understand? Yeah, so.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Hmm?
may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who are always sensitive to the spiritual nature of things
Mm-hmm.
and not be distracted by the physical nature of things.
Um,
Because that's the real reality. The
right.
spiritual reality, that's the real reality. The physical reality, that's just, a temporal thing that we just go through.
Yeah, I think so. And it just sometimes gets so emotional, I mean, things that sometimes you find with them, but I get so used to it now. Okay.
Yeah, I used to work in a hospital too. So I know it
Chaplain,
can
right?
get yeah, yep. I did per diem in a hospital for what, like 2 years or so?
Yeah. Yep. It's a lot of
So
things you
yeah, I know
face,
how.
and the family too, but
Yep.
you have to get through the path. That's why I say every day I read all the Al-Fatiha and Kursi if I have any issues, if I face any sin and unseen, that kind of situation. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the beneficial things is that it's a constant reminder of the ultimate end of all of us, which is going to be returning to Rafiqa A'la, returning to the highest companion.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a good reminder of, what is going to be our ultimate end.
Okay. Well, it's good to share about this because sometimes you just need to speak up, you know what I mean?
Alhamdulillah.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Sister
Wa
Kamina.
alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Thank you. I'm dialing in from New York City. First time joining. Just happy to be here and listen in.
Alhamdulillah, welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. So is everyone from New York? I'm actually about as close to New York as I ever want to get in the near future. We're in New Jersey City, and that's about as close to New York as I actually want to be.
What's wrong with New York?
I'm not a New York fan. I'm sorry. I know some people love New York. I'm just not one of them.
Yeah.
Like, for me, there's like nothing that I can really I can truly enjoy. Like, I don't do the nightlife, so there goes like probably like 60% of what many people like about New York. I don't like the expensiveness in New York, so that's like another, 10% of the aspect of living in New York. I don't like um, the mindset that many people have in New York. I don't like the transportation system in New York. So it's probably not a good thing to ask me about what I don't like about New York. But again, I know some people who absolutely love New York.
Yeah.
I say that they're a special bunch.
Yeah, I agree. I
I'm more
think.
or less.
Mhm.
What was that?
Oh no, I was just going to say, I guess on par with the context of this meeting is that living in New York, it is, I wouldn't say easy to be distracted, but you're constantly surrounded by distractions. But I feel like that just gives me even more reason to kind of ground myself and to, like, I don't know, just kind of anchor myself to like what's important throughout the day. And even when you kind of like put your blinders on and, kind of don't see everything that's happening around you, there's still some things to appreciate about the city.
Yeah, I mean, as the saying would, well, I'm not going to say this particular saying, but I mean, essentially, there's always going to be good in something, So there were certain things that I liked about New York in terms of, you know, New York is the location that I first came into the Mecca Center. So, like, it used to be a situation where the Living Islam, this used to be in person. And we used to meet at the Mecca Center right in the heart of Times Square, like literally the heart. We were initially like 15-minute walk from Penn Station. And then we moved and we were about a 15-minute walk from Madison Square Garden. So like we're like right in the heart of the city.
Yeah.
And we used to have our classes, our Living Islam, all in the heart of New York. And then, like on a night like tonight, when I would have a Living Islam session, then I had to walk back to the bus station or the train station and hope that I caught the caught the bus or the train in time, or I have to wait like an hour for the next one to come. So, but you know that's where the Mecca Center was. And so, that was a good thing in terms of New York. Uh, but would I have appreciated if the Mecca Center was not in New York? Probably. But, there's a lot of good memories that happened in New York. I was actually surprised when we shut down during COVID. I was one of those people who's just like, look, keep going. Like, don't worry about the COVID.
Mhm.
But, mashallah. Amy, where are you coming from? Or Joel, where are you coming from? Abdul Rashid, where are you logging in from? You can feel free to use your to unmute yourselves. New York City. So I guess I picked the wrong night to talk bad about New York.
Assalamu alaikum. No, I'm from Long Island.
Long Island. Yeah, I really picked the wrong night to talk about New York.
It's all good. It's all
I think it
good.
might just be me and Sister Tahmina, the only ones that are not in New York.
New York's not for everyone.
Who is that?
So New York's not for everyone.
I know it's not for me. I don't know if you could pay me enough to live in New York. And now New York is going to be even more different because Imam Khalid Latif is not even going to be in NYU anymore.
Really? Where's he going?
I don't know yet.
Oh,
He sent a message, what, 2 weeks ago, saying that this was going to be his last year, and so in August he's going to be leaving NYU, and he will be going into other ventures. So I don't know exactly the details of it,
wow.
but yeah, he won't be at NYU. So those going to be some big shoes to fill because he's been there for like 20 something years,
I think he's known
something
for
like
the
that.
9/11. Remember the 9/11, the imam, the first imam to come out.
Yeah, that's going back all the way to 2001.
Yeah.
So he's a fixture in New York. So I wouldn't want to be the one that has to take his place. So what else is going on? Everyone's ready for Ramadan?
I don't feel ready. I need time to slow down. It's like I need some extra days in between before it starts. Chill.
That reminds me of a meme that I seen one time. I think I still have it on my phone. I sent it to one of my professors because they were a professor that always talked about self-care. And I thought that it was a good meme. It says, I need a day between every day to recover from the day before and prepare for the upcoming day.
Oh my goodness, that's so on
So,
point.
so yeah, I thought that my professor would like that. So, yeah. But the beautiful thing about Ramadan is that there's a lot of barakah that's placed in it. So whenever it comes, it's generally speaking always right on time. So even if we fulfill that we're not necessarily prepared for it, it's that inshallah from the blessing of that month is that we will be prepared. Jules said, I would like to move to Al Maqasid. Yeah, I'm about 6 minutes away from Al Maqasid, actually. Not right now, but my home is actually about 6 minutes away from Al Maqasid. They're actually having their Ihya al-Din weekend retreat right now. So yeah, I'm at Maqasid quite regularly, and I work about a half hour away from Maqasid. Yeah, I didn't necessarily know that this was going to happen. It actually happened somewhat fast. You know, I think October 2023 is when it initially happened, and then May of 2024, I knew that I was going to be accepting a position in Pennsylvania, and then in September of 2024, we moved. So, so in basically like 11 months, we ended up being about, yeah, like 6 minutes away from a closet. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it
Inshallah.
easy for you. I will say that there's nothing there. So for the most part, like, Maqasid is in Makunji, Pennsylvania. And as my son would like to say, that we live in the mountains. And so, is the Muslims that you see around there, for the most part, are only there because of Maqasid.
It's a community that he said.
Um, yeah. Well, the way that the community is that like there are different pockets. Like so, for example, a good chunk of the community
Mhm.
kind of lives like right behind Maqasid. So like for example, Sheikh Yahya, Ustadh Amjad, and others, their house is like right behind Maqasid. What most people say is like behind the train
Mm-hmm.
tracks, so to speak. But then other people, they live like for example, me, I don't live in that immediate area. I live kind of like across the way, so to speak. So technically speaking, even though I'm only like a 6 minute drive away from Maqasid, like some people will say that I live far. because because most of the people live in like that immediate area, which is only like 3 or 4 minutes away. So like me living 6 minutes away, I'm considered to like live far, so to speak. Uh, but like for example, if I remember correctly, I think my wife had told me that some of the sisters, they have they have like a house that some sisters like share together, like for like that are single sisters. I believe that might be the case. I know that the brothers who are students there, some of them live in a house that they use as basically a dorm. So some of the brothers who are students, they live in a house, and that house is actually like not too far from Sheikh Yahya and Sheikh Amz's house. Um, so I know some of the brothers do, but obviously I don't interact with the sisters much at all. So I don't know necessarily all the details in regards to the sisters. But in terms of apartments, there are not many. Because again, it's like really in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like a very, a very suburban, quiet neighborhood. And so for the most part, it's just houses or townhomes. Like, for example, I live in a townhome. Um, Probably the biggest benefit is that I don't have to worry about doing any outside work. But like right now, it's snowing in Pennsylvania. When I get home, my sidewalk will probably already be shoveled. So that's like the only good thing, but I have to pay for it. So,
But I know a few of the sisters that I know. One of them, the volunteer. I think you will know her, Sister Zainab, who used to be the announcement. She moved up there, and the only reason why she moved up there is because of
okay.
Amagasit. She and her family, and I think there's another sisters too. I know that they moved up there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's particularly from the Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
If they live in Makanji, it's pretty much, you can almost guarantee it's for Maqasid.
Yeah.
Because again, there's like nothing else here. Or should I say nothing else there? I have to keep remembering I'm in Jersey City right now.
Right.
There's like, even from the standpoint of like halal food, like you have to probably drive like 20 minutes to like the closest halal restaurant, for example.
Well, not as bad
I
as
mean, like
me
you can
here.
go, what do you
I
say?
said not as bad as me to go halal place. It takes me an hour.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
maybe
really
not as bad.
I'm bad over here. It's like I'm living in the woods. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
in the
So yeah, so
Pocahontas.
the thing is that so the thing is that it is like Makanji is actually considered to be a suburb of it's considered to be a suburb or a borough of Allentown. So Allentown is like the greater city. And Makanji is like a borough of Allentown. But like Philadelphia, that's like an hour away. Like so like my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, they live in Upper Darby, which is right next to Philadelphia. So they're about like an hour away. So it's not too far, but like, I'm not necessarily going to be trying to go to Philly to get anything to eat or anything like that. Um, but yeah, Allentown is the main city within that. So like the whole area is called the Lehigh Valley. And so it's made up of like Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, MS, Pennsylvania, Allentown, um, and then the borough of Makunji, and so like that general area is considered to be Lehigh Valley. And so depending, like Allentown is kind of like the most major city in that area. But even in Allentown, I mean, I've only been here, like I said, since September, so I haven't necessarily uh like explored all the area. But again, it's not that many not that many things around the area. And so again, for the most part, for me, it works because again, I'm not like a city guy, so I don't mind living in the quiet suburbs. And like I said, I'm only like 6 minutes away from Maqasid, so I get to pray in Jama'at, and it's not far to do so. And I know many of the people there because we all, for the like, particularly like the teachers and some of the others, we've all spent time in Tarim. So I'm very familiar with the people there. I'm familiar with the Tartib, the program there, and so on and so forth. So it works. And as soon as my wife is able to, inshallah ta'ala, next month deliver our son, then she'll probably be even more active with the community as well. Because my wife was also in Tarim for some time. So she's familiar with the sisters, some of the sisters there.
So are you teaching there too a little bit or no?
Am I teaching at Closet?
Uh-huh. No.
Um, I've been asked, but the thing is that most of the times that their class schedule is during the
Mm-hmm.
day,
Mm-hmm.
and my schedule it just doesn't work
Oh.
to be able to do so. So it's possible in the future we might do some things. So we'll see. But currently, I'm not teaching,
Okay.
not at McCossett. So for the most part on the ground in person. I'm teaching at the Lehigh University.
So wait, you are in Lehigh as a chaplain or what? Or just teaching? Chaplain.
So technically, I have like three titles. So it's Director of Muslim Student Life / Associate Chaplain /
Mhm.
Imam. And so basically what that just does is that it covers different aspects. So Director of Muslim Student Life, meaning that I'm more or less the point of return for things involving the Muslim students. So like, for example, on Tuesday, I think it is, I have to have a meeting about the halal meat that they offer on campus.
Mhm.
Um, Also, I've been working on securing a prayer space for the Muslim students, advocating for Muslim students in regards to certain accommodations and so on and so forth. So that's like the director aspect. Associate chaplain essentially means that um, I can give spiritual care to the students, and also that I am a non-mandatory reporter, meaning that anything that a student comes to me and tells me, I don't necessarily have to report it to the university or to um, any other authority. So it's kind of like the priest type of concept, where it's like, it's not something that you say to a priest. They don't have to repeat it to other people. Because I'm an associate chaplain, I have that same capacity. With a few exceptions, but in general, I don't have to report. And then the aspect of imam, that's just because they need to have a title to give me. So just like we have the rabbi on campus, and we have the Catholic priest who's referred to as the father. So, I'm given the title of imam. And so but that also includes the aspect of like having halakas and doing Juma, and things like that. So yeah, so that's what I do throughout the week. And so it's actually been keeping me quite busy this semester.
Mm. Last weekend I attended the AMWA, the American Muslim Women Association. This is the Black History Month, and there's this there is a American Muslim museum that gathers all the historical and Muslim in America in Washington D.C. So they had the exhibition down by the hall, and it's very, very interesting. The untold story of the American Black Muslim here. Apparently, there is a story. I'm not sure whether anybody have seen that movie. Is The Prince, and apparently the
Prince
early
Among
days.
Slaves.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Yes.
behind all those
Yeah,
a
Prince
lot of
Abdurrahman.
Muslim, and I think the first settlers that comes in is by the name of Mahmud, Mehmot.
Yeah,
So
so Yaro Mahmoud. He wasn't the
yes.
first. He was actually one who was buried in Washington, D.C. So it was actually in Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have a masjid on the campus, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's named the Masjid Yaro Mahmoud.
Okay.
So and so uh yeah, it's actually funny because I'm actually going to be doing a presentation on Black Muslim history on Tuesday. So all of these different concepts are like fresh in my head right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, Yaro Mahmoud,
Yeah.
he was the one who they actually thought that he converted to Christianity
Mm-hmm.
because he used to have a Bible that he kept. And at one point, they had thought that he had written out the Lord's Prayer in Arabic because they couldn't read Arabic. So they just thought that he wrote out the Lord's Prayer in Arabic. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, when it was actually read by someone who could read Arabic, it actually turned out to be Surah Nasr.
Mm.
So,
Anyway,
but the
since you have
prince
this. Mm-hmm.
is, yeah. No, I was just answering someone's question in the chat. It's Prince Abdurrahman. They have a documentary which is called Prince Among Slaves. Yeah, Prince Among Slaves, I think is what the documentary is called.
Mm-hmm.
But his name was Abdurrahman.
Yeah, and then there's also the very famous the Joseph Benali, Benenhaley, but actually his name is Yusuf Ben Ali, Benali.
Yusuf bin Suleiman Ali,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. Yusuf bin Suleiman.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean a lot of time, even like Yaro Mahmoud is actually considered that his name was probably Mahmoud Yaro or something of that nature.
Mhm.
It's just they didn't keep very good records, nor did they really care.
Yeah.
um, about unfortunately about many of the slaves. And so uh but so there are a few, like there's even you have Muhammad bin Ali, who
Mm-hmm.
actually he wrote actually a thick manual while he was enslaved in Georgia. He wrote a thick manual. You have Ayub bin Suleiman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ayub Suleiman, he, um, I'm just trying to make sure I don't confuse the different individuals. So Yara Mahmoud was Omar bin Said. No, excuse me, it was Omar bin Said. He's the one that wrote out the Lord's Prayer in Arabic. Yara bin Mahmoud, he was an individual who uh, he was actually very financially savvy. He actually made investments and actually bought his own land after he was freed as a slave at an old age.
Mm.
And then Ayub bin Suleiman, I just want to make sure. Yeah, Ayub bin Suleiman, he actually was referred to as the fortunate slave because he was an individual who actually ran away from his slave master. And when he did that, he was caught. And when he was brought back to his slave master asked him, why did he run away? And so he told him that he was actually trying to pray, and the children were bothering him during his prayer. And so the slave master actually gave him his own quarters to pray in just because of how valuable a slave he was. So like, that's why he referred to as the fortunate slave. But actually, fortunately for him, shortly thereafter, he was freed after he wrote a letter to go back to his father and ended up stopping in the UK, or should I say in Britain, and an individual by the name of James Oglethorpe had come across it and was so impressed by it that James Oglethorpe himself paid to have him freed. And and so the story continues. So like I said, all these things are like fresh in my head right now. But yes, it's definitely a rich history of African Muslims in America. So if you
What I
wanted to know
can
more
do,
about that, like now, that's
yeah, what I can do is I'll share the website that if they want to take a look about this. It's very interesting, I thought. And the guy who do the archiving, he spent 28 years to do all the archiving. It's and
mashallah.
yeah. So
Yeah, if you can share that in the chat.
okay, inshallah, I'll get it done.
Yeah, but there's definitely a rich history of Islam and then African Islam throughout American history. Like you can definitely trace it going all the way back to the 1700s. But there's even evidence suggesting that Muslims have been in America even before that.
I have a question. Ramadan is coming.
Mhm.
I know that you have a workshop and I applied for it. But I don't know as much as Muslims like for a long time. So do you think so? I wanted to prepare before 2 weeks. I mean now like 2 weeks or something. So I want to start to prepare from now. What do you suggest? Like what can I do?
Um, if you come to the pre-prep session, we generally speaking cover a good amount during that session so that a person can more or less be prepared for it. And so the way that we break it down is that we go like usually I forget how long the session is supposed to last.
I
Sister
think 2
Tatmina might
hours.
be able to remind me. But usually, yeah, usually we
Two
do it in a
hours.
2 hour span. Yeah. So the first hour we go over like the fiqh of Ramadan, meaning like, the rules associated with Ramadan, what you have to do, what you can't do, so on and so forth. And then the next hour we use to go over the spiritual aspect of Ramadan, of like how to get the most spiritually out of your Ramadan. So if a person goes through that, they should be pretty ready for Ramadan. Now, from the standpoint of like the physical aspect of like just like preparing yourself for the physical aspect of fasting, there's not much that a person can necessarily do per se. What a person could somewhat do is that they can just kind of reduce their intake of food during the day. So, for example, if a person's used to eating 3 times a day, then maybe they start reducing it to twice a day, and kind of make them at the ends of the day. So, like eat breakfast and then don't eat again until dinner time. Just so like you can start to get into this aspect of not necessarily worrying about eating during the day. In particular, it's going to be slightly easier because we're not in the heart of the summer months. And so for the most part, it's more or less going to be kind of like just skipping lunch. Um, But a person can do that. And then like, because this is, it's not recommended to fast at this point, meaning a true fast, so that if you're going to do this, you can still like drink and things like that during the day. But if a person wanted to do some type of aspect of preparation, then you can do that. So like, have your normal breakfast that you may have, and then just skip lunch so that you kind of get used to the aspect of not necessarily having to eat like 3 meals a day, whatever the case may be. But again, from the standpoint of like the technical aspects of the fast and then the spiritual aspects of the fast, in that 2 hour session, we cover a good amount. So I would say a person would be pretty prepared for Ramadan if they were to just attend that 2 hour session.
Okay. I did last Ramadan. I just feel eat in the morning, like before Fajr. It's very hard. It's too early to eat, and so I some
Yeah, so
how do you do that?
Yeah, so there's nothing, again, from that aspect, there's not much that can kind of make it easier per se. Because actually, for many people, is the aspect of eating that early, and then also the aspect of just even getting up that early. Um, because in Ramadan, you don't sleep as much just naturally. So some of the things that we do suggest, though, in terms of even getting up and eating for the suhoor, is the what it is that you eat. So some of the things that are actually good to eat during that time are things um, like if you have like a very good smoothie recipe, something that's just, easy to drink down,
Mm-hmm.
or even just having something simple like dates and water. Essentially what we don't recommend is like people having like a heavy meal, having like, because some people, they'll get up and they'll have like a whole full-fledged breakfast, like, pancakes and eggs, or like, if a person, they'll have like leftovers from dinner the night before, and so on and so forth. It's not necessarily recommended to have that. Like I would say like the heaviest meal that you possibly want to have, and this is only if you feel like cooking that type of stuff at that time in the morning, is like, oh, like, I wouldn't go any heavier than that. Yeah, so like what Sister Tahmina just wrote in the chat, it's like if you do overnight oats, then that can work for you as well. Like, if you want to do overnight oats, or muesli, if a person's used to eating muesli or something like that, that would be like the heaviest I would go. Because oftentimes if you eat heavy in the morning, it often will even make you even more tired as you go through the day. And you can actually find yourself even being more hungry as you go through the day.
Mm. Mm, okay. How about the books? Like I memorized the major like the prayer. Do I need to memorize something else? I'm currently learning Dicker. Is it called Dicker? Something like that. Um, but I don't know what exactly. There's so many Dickers. I cannot memorize everything. Can you tell me like what I needed to memorize right now? Like because it take me time because I'm learning Arabic. It's not easy for me to memorize in a short time. So I think I can start preparing right now.
Yeah.
And
So
this is
for Ramadan itself, there's nothing that you have to memorize specifically.
mm,
And for you, my recommendation would just be making yourself comfortable with the prayer.
mm,
And I would, only focus on that. So basically, once you're comfortable with the prayer, like you've memorized the parts of the prayer that need to be memorized. And then maybe after that, you memorize some of the different remembrances that you might do after the prayer.
mm,
I wouldn't go further than that until you feel that you're ready, meaning that once that becomes comfortable for you and it's something where it's more or less easy, then you can think about memorizing other dhikrs for example, different occasions. So, for example, you might next memorize the dhikr before going to sleep, or you might memorize a dhikr for when you wake up, and so on and so forth. So I would say take it step by step. Don't worry about in terms of time frame or anything like that. In terms of memorization. If you've already memorized what you need for the prayer, then just make sure that you're comfortable with that. And then after that, you can move on to other things in terms of dhikr.
Okay, so you mean the prayer is just like a normal prayer? There's no like addition prayers.
So in Ramadan, there is additional prayer, which is called the Tarawih prayer. But generally speaking, that's prayed behind an imam, and it wouldn't be any different than the prayers that we normally pray. And so the Tarawih prayers are 2 rak'ah prayers that are prayed up until the point that, generally speaking, you get to either 8 or 20 cycles of prayer. So they're prayed in sets of 2. So you pray 2 rak'ahs, and then the imam will stand up and pray an additional 2 rak'ahs, and then there would be a short break in between, and then he would keep doing that until he reached either 8 or 20 rak'ahs. The reason why I keep saying either 8 or 20 is because depending on the masjid that a person might go to, it would vary in regards to how many rak'ahs they would pray. But again, if you're going to the masjid, that will be prayed in congregation, and so you would just follow behind the imam. If a person wants to, they can also pray the Taraweeh prayer at home, and it would be just a 2-cycle prayer, like any other 2-cycle prayer. And again, they can either pray 8 or 20 rak'ahs if they decide that they want to do it at home. But there's not going to be any difference in regards to like additional things to memorize or anything like that, even for the Taraweeh prayers.
Okay. Do I have to go to the masjid every day during Ramadan? Or like what, at least once a day?
You don't have to.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't have to. It's considered to be good if you are able to, but it's not an obligation. So if a person is able to go to the masjid, particularly for the Taraweeh prayer, it is considered to be a good thing, but technically speaking, there's not an obligation to do so.
okay.
So like I said, if a person decided that they wanted to pray, for example, Taraweeh in their home, that is permissible as well.
Okay. Taraweeh is the last prayer or what? Or every prayer?
So Taraweeh is only prayed in Ramadan, and it can only be prayed after a person has prayed Salatul Isha.
Oh,
So
okay.
after you
Right.
finish praying Salatul Isha,
Yeah.
then you pray the Taraweeh prayer.
Thank you very much.
And then after you finish all of that, then you would end it all by praying the witr prayer, the odd number prayer. And so in Ramadan, usually people will go to the masjid and pray it in congregation. But again, there's not an obligation to do so. So if a person decided that they wanted to do it at home, then they can do it at home as well.
Yeah, it's always very crowded in the masjid during Ramadan. I suddenly thought about another question. Do I have to stay overnight in the masjid during Ramadan?
So usually what happens is that it really just going to depend on the masjid, but some masjids in the month of Ramadan, they'll have qiyam programs. Qiyam being night programs. Technically speaking, qiyam means standing, but in relation to like Ramadan, it usually relates to the standing in the night. And so masjids during Ramadan will often have qiyam programs. And so in that situation, then sometimes people will stay overnight. But again, there's no obligation to do that. If a person decides that they want to, it can be very spiritually uplifting and rewarding, but there's no obligation. So that would be a personal choice. If the masjid, for one, is holding a qiyam program, and also if a person wanted to stay for it. In the last 10 nights of Ramadan is when it's recommended, and according to some scholars, they consider it to be a communal obligation, that in particular men will stay overnight in the masjid to do what's referred to as ihtikaf, which is a spiritual retreat in the masjid in the last 10 days, in particular in the last 10 days of Ramadan, and which they essentially will stay in the masjid the entire time, meaning that they will sleep They will eat, drink, sleep in the masjid. But generally speaking, the masjids, they reserve this for men. But a woman, for example, if she wanted to, she can do an ihtikaf more or less in her home, where like she can designate a place that she typically will pray and devote herself to acts of worship throughout the days and nights in the last 10 days of Ramadan.
Thank you so much, Iman.
No problem. Someone wrote into the chat, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. Is it sunnah to reduce the overall intake of what one normally eats for Ramadan? So instead of just eating everything that one would normally eat just at a different time, the goal would be to eat less overall. Yes, that is exactly right. And unfortunately, sometimes we have this concept that, we have to make up for what it is that I missed out on. But actually, the whole aspect of, part of the aspect of Ramadan is that we are diminishing our worldly desires. So in a normative situation, we would eat, whatever, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and so on and so forth. But in the month of Ramadan, we want to decrease what it is that we're feeding our desires so that our ruh can grow, so that our spiritual self can grow. And so one of the ways that our spiritual self does not grow is when we're constantly feeding into our desires. And so, yes, part of the aspect of Ramadan is that we should be eating less. So for example, as my wife would say, like, or, more or less paraphrasing, but if a person gains weight in Ramadan, yeah, something's probably wrong. you know, uh, because the thing is that sometimes we have, iftar events and things like that, and a person has like one, two, three, four plates. And the thing is that I don't know about many other people, but I know for me that after about the first 3, 4 days of Ramadan, I can't even eat as much as I normally would. Your stomach adjusts to the aspect of not having the normal amount of food that that is accustomed to. And so I know for me, after again, like the first 3, 4 nights of Ramadan, I can't even eat as much as I would normally eat in one sitting. And so, yes, one of the best things that you can do is to definitely decrease your intake. So like again, when you eat suhoor, don't try to kind of like stuff your face with suhoor. Keep it very simple. I mean, really, if you want to, if you're capable of doing it, you can just have a couple sips of water, and that will fulfill the sunnah of suhoor. And you'd be amazed sometimes that with the blessing of the month of Ramadan and the blessing of a righteous intention, that sip of water could actually do more for you than having like a whole smorgasbord of food. And then when it comes time for the iftar of the breaking of the fast, don't stack yourself with 2, 3 plates. Have a modest plate. Actually possibly even put less on your plate than you actually normally would if you weren't fasting. And eat slowly. These are actually health tips that doctors and nutritionists will give you. And again, you'll be amazed at, the results that you may see from that. Yeah, dates and honey. That's like combining two sweet sunnah foods, but also people do dates with cream cheese as well. Don't ask me. I mean, I sometimes might be that just have a sip of water person.
Are you allowed to drink a sip of water? Are you allowed to have a sip of water during the day?
During the fast Ramadan,
Yeah.
no. So nothing can enter into your body cavity during the day.
How do you deal with it if you are too thirsty? I remember last Ramadan, I was very thirsty sometimes. It's very hard. It's to concentrate. I feel dizzy. I was at work. I feel so dizzy.
Yeah, so
Oh no, I think we lost Ustadh Tariq. Give it a minute, inshallah, he'll be back on.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry about that.
Walaikum assalam.
Some technical difficulties. I wonder what happened if, oh, yeah, I'd rather not. Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, when it comes to thirst during the month of Ramadan, there's not much that you can kind of do with it. Like it does become sometimes difficult. But one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is that don't eat a lot when you break your iftar, but do make sure that you try to stay extra hydrated during the night. And so this is why, sometimes like if you go to the Masjid at Tarawih, you'll see people, they'll have their thermoses and things like that with them. And part of the reason for that is just that to try to keep themselves hydrated. Um, uh, the aspect of trying to keep yourself hydrated for the day to come. And so that's the best suggestion that I can give is just that at night, just try to make sure that you stay hydrated and try not to eat foods that kind of drain you. So, or to drink things that will drain you. So, like, don't drink coffee or these type of things, but drink a lot of water so that it can help you to maintain your hydration even throughout the day. And as best as possible, trying to stay in cool environments so that it doesn't exasperate the aspect of being thirsty. But yeah, that can definitely be an issue. I mean, for me, again, for me, it's usually the aspect of being tired. That's usually the biggest difficulty, um, especially trying to keep up with Salat al-Tarawih and getting up for suhoor and things of that nature. So,
I have friend that to take the whole month off for Ramadan. Then during the daytime that he and his family they all sleep. The nighttime they all eat. They are eating. It's a cheating, right? I don't know whether it's allowed.
so the thing is that technically speaking, it's not cheating
Oh yeah.
because if you actually were to do Ramadan in a Muslim country,
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what happens. Like the whole country just becomes nocturnal essentially. So like during the day, people are taking a rest and sleeping and so on and so forth, and then at night the city comes alive, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Wow.
But that's in the case of like the normal everyday person. But like for example, when I was studying in Yemen, we we didn't have a break period. Like I remember our first night of Ramadan, I didn't know what the tartib was. Excuse me for 1 second.
Yeah.
So the first night when I was a student in Tarim in Yemen, I didn't know what the schedule was. So that night we of course we had Salatul Tarawih, and then we did Salatul Witr, and I was under the impression that okay, now it's time to go to sleep so that we can get prepared to get up for Sahur and so on and so forth. But when I went to the gate to go upstairs to where our rooms were, the gate was locked. So I'm kind of looking around like, what's going on? Like, why is the gate still locked? And so some time passed, some more time passed. And then it just got to the point where it's just like, all right, it doesn't look like they're actually going to open the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually it was probably like 45 minutes or so before Salat al-Fajr, and they finally opened the gate. So I'm like, okay, obviously we're not going to be sleeping, so like I just went upstairs, freshened myself up, whatever, like went to the bathroom, made wudu, whatever case may be, came back downstairs, got my suhoor, did whatever before Fajr.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm thinking, okay, now we'll, pray Fajr, and now we're going to go to sleep after Fajr. So like, okay, we stay up the night, get the benefits of worship in the night, and then we sleep, after Fajr.
Mhm.
So after we finished the prayer and we did our normal adhkar and things like that, after the prayer, the main teacher, Habib Omar, he gets up and he sits down and he starts speaking. So I'm thinking, okay, he's going to give some general advice for the first night of Ramadan and so on and so forth, but something brief, and then we're going to go to sleep. He gets up there and he gives a whole lecture.
Mhm.
So at this point, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm done. And
Yeah,
so by the time that they
Mhm.
finally opened up the gates for us to go back to sleep, it was probably somewhere, I don't know, maybe like 9, 10 o'clock. And then we had to get back up by Dhuhr time, which is around 12 o'clock. And I still had classes that I had to take. So
Mhm.
we, yeah, when you're a student in the Muslim world, it's a whole different
Mhm.
dynamic. You're not expected to sleep day
Oh,
or night.
wow, that's hard. So hard.
Is this also what happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, sleeping during the day? I mean, it just depended, so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he didn't necessarily give a particular tartib to his Sahaba per se, and but they were still going about their normal day. So, for example, it's commonplace in the Muslim world to take what's referred to as a qaylula, which is a midday nap. So during the day, usually either before or right after dhuhr, that you would take a nap. And so many of the people um, in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallam, they would take advantage of the midday nap. And so that's another thing to try to take advantage of, is that if you can, even if it's a quick cat nap, meaning like, a quick 15-minute nap, those can be some of the most beneficial naps that you can actually take. So like, if you can get in, like, like on your lunch break or something like that, instead of going to eat or whatever case may be, just like, get yourself a quick 20-30 minute power nap. You can be amazed at, how beneficial that can be. Alhamdulillah, right now I have an office with a couch in it, so I may be utilizing that couch during Ramadan during the day. But yeah, if you can get yourself a nap in, that can really help in terms of the lack of sleep that people often struggle with. Um, I'm not able to fast because of my health and the medication that I have to take. Is there something I could say, a response I can give without me giving my health report? Um, Generally speaking, like for people who are going to be excused from fasting, wait, before I answer that question, are you talking about in relation to like other Muslims asking you about your situation, or like to okay, so in regards to other Muslims, the general recommendation is that if it's possible, to eat when other people are not around, so that they won't necessarily ask you about your situation or whatever the case may be. Uh, uh, and so this way they won't have, but also the concept that we're supposed to have as Muslims is the aspect of having husnul dhan, having a good opinion of other people. And so, Sister Naila, I know that you are a sister. So really other Muslims shouldn't even necessarily be asking about it, because there are multiple different reasons why you may not be fasting. So for example, it could be a situation, that you and I'm not trying to be personal, but like for example, there are different women situations that will cause them to not be able to fast, or it could be that you're in a situation where you have a health situation that causes you not to fast. But to kind of avoid that, what is recommended is that if the times that you need to eat, that if it's possible to eat privately, then that would be considered to be better. But if you just want to give a word of like, I'm excused from the fast, or like, I have a particular situation and this is why I'm not fasting, then you can say something like that and not, have people know about, your personal situation in particular. Now, before I cut off, was there a comment or a question that was in the chat that I didn't recognize? Because I don't remember if there was or not. So I just want to make sure I didn't skip over anyone. Have fun. Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't remember if there was or not. And yeah, like they actually used to say that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, they used to say about him that he only ate like every 2 days or something like that. Like, it was some type of like ridiculous situation like that. Like he only ate like every 2 days or something like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he can make easy for anyone anything that he wishes.
There's one more question I have here.
Mhm.
Somebody asked me, because I'm in a group of sisters out here.
Mhm.
She was saying that you were talking about probably taking a midday rest. And is it permissible, for instance, because you work in the office, correct? That you have your Zohor just before Asar come in, so as you can continue from Zohor to Asar, and then you take that rest. Like she has like 45-minute rest, like in the hospital they have only 45 minutes rest.
So you're saying, can you say the first part again?
Okay, is it okay for her to have to do her Zohor just before Asar comes in?
Okay, so to delay Dhuhr until
Yeah.
just before Asr comes in?
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
she can have that 45 minutes. They only have 45 minutes break. So they
yeah.
pray, and then they rest.
Okay, yeah. So if that's the case, then yeah, it would be permissible, and particularly because a person would have a reason for doing so. So the delaying of the prayer is normatively not recommended. However, if there's a reason that a person is doing it, so for example, their work schedule just only permits them to be able to pray in this short window, then it wouldn't necessarily be disliked if a person were to utilize that. Um, so yeah, that would be fine to do. And in some situations, that's what I've recommended for people. Like if you're very limited in terms of the break times that you can have, then it can be a situation where you delay the Dhuhr prayer until it's closer to the Asr time. And then this way you can pray the Dhuhr and Asr right next to each other. So that as soon as you finish the Dhuhr prayer, then the Asr prayer will shortly come in thereafter, and then you can pray the Asr prayer.
Okay. That's what she's asking. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Wa alaikum.
I was told, I think it's Maliki. Maliki taught me that when I was praying, I don't when I'm praying, I don't need to hold my arms up. I put my arms down. I just lean against my legs. And is that okay? Like
Yeah,
some.
so in the Maliki school, that is
Mhm.
considered to be one of the sunnah, one of the recommended ways of praying. So they would pray with the arms at the side.
Mhm.
So that would be permissible. Even in the Shafi school, it would be considered to be something permissible. It's just that that's considered not to be the preferred way of holding the hands. But definitely that's permissible, and it is a relied upon position in the Maliki school of law.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Could you maybe speak to like the pointer finger during Salah?
Oh, so when do you lift the finger?
Yeah.
So this actually varies according to the different schools of law. So before I get into it, is there a particular school of law that you're asking from?
No, it was just when I'm in Juma, I see the different sisters do it at different times, and I'm just never sure when or why we do it.
Yeah. Okay. So in regards to the aspect of the moving of the finger, the scholars, like I said, they pretty much in all different schools of law, they differ in terms of the finger. And the reason why that is because not to make this like an a sole lecture, but in the science of usul fiqh, which is the principles of Islamic jurisprudence, there's a concept of what's referred to as dhanniya dalala. So dhanniya dalala, what that means is that the ruling on something is speculative, meaning that we can have a textual evidence for something, but the understanding that we get from that textual evidence is speculative, meaning it's subject to interpretation. And so when it comes to the movement of the finger, that is one of the areas where there is such a situation where the text is not 100% clear as to what it meant. So one of the texts of the aspect of the movement of the finger is that it mentions essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially that the Prophet ﷺ moved his finger. Now the problem comes into the the situation as to what does it mean he moved his finger? Meaning, does it mean that he moved his finger from one position to another position and then kept it still? Does it mean that he kept his finger moving, like he actually literally moved his finger? And also, does it mean that he moved his finger and kept it there? Or did he move his finger and then he brought it back? And so this is why you see different people doing different things because all of those different positions exist. That some scholars they preferred the understanding that the Prophet ﷺ, he moved his finger, meaning that he moved it from a relaxed position to an upright position and kept it there. Some said that he moved it from a relaxed position to upright position, but then he brought it back. Some say that he actually just continuously moved his finger. And so there's a difference of opinion of exactly what the Prophet ﷺ did based upon the description that we have. Because again, it's a thing where it's dhanniya dalala. That's the ruling that we can gain from it is speculative. From a practical standpoint, is that generally speaking, a person, when they're learning the rulings of prayer and other concepts, is that they're generally speaking going to be learning from one of the four schools of law. And so, as long as a person is acting upon the school of law that they're most familiar with, then whichever school of law that is, and whatever position that they have in regards to the movement of the finger, they can just go with that and just understand that if they see other people doing different things, then they just may be following another school of law in regards to that.
Understood. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I've heard horror stories about the finger movement. Like someone told me that one time someone was praying in congregation, and while they were praying, someone literally came over and moved their finger for them. Like I can't really imagine someone really doing that. Like, but I've heard of and experienced some interesting situations. Like even for myself, like I had one person try to critique my prayer after we had finished praying Salat in congregation. And the details in which he was going in about my prayer, I really want to ask him, like, dude, were you praying or are you just watching me pray? Like it wasn't like I was like praying sunnahs or something like that, and he was just seeing me pray. Like we were praying next to each other in the congregational obligatory prayer. So it's like, how did you see those details about me? So, so yeah.
You were saying about the congregation prayer, right? I cannot remember if you're the one or somebody else told me that in the Shafi school, um, when you read the last one, the Attahiyatu, right? You have to make sure that your finger has to be there all the way until the Imam say Ashadu an la ilaha, then you bring it down, correct?
So in the Shafi school, the position is that the finger stays down like this
Yeah.
until you get into, like you said, illallah, and
Mhm.
that's when you lift it up. And in the Shafi school, you keep it lifted up until right before you do the taslim. Like right before you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, that's when you place it down, and then you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Okay.
So that's the Shafi position.
Okay, so meaning that if you do congregations and you have to follow the Imam, and then once you say Ashadu, then you put it down.
Well, the thing is that if you're praying behind the Imam,
Mhm.
unless you have very, very good hearing,
Mhm.
I don't even know if you'd be able to hear him say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Because the tashahhud is supposed to be such that you can hear yourself, but other people can't hear you. But in any case, it's not based upon the tashahhud of the Imam, it's based upon your own personal tashahhud.
Oh, okay. All right. And the Imam has to finish first before we turn our head, correct?
Yeah, so the aspect of following the Imam is that essentially you don't do anything before the Imam. However, from a technical aspect, as long as you don't precede the Imam by 2 full integrals, then your prayer will still be valid. But it wouldn't be considered to be proper etiquette for you to precede the Imam in any of the actions.
Okay, got you. All right, thank you. This is just refreshing.
No problem.
Going back to the masjid again during Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm now studying Hanafi fiqh, so, but alhamdulillah, I still remember my Shafi'i fiqh.
Do you have the green screen behind you? It's like a Hollywood movie production screen.
Yeah, I'm actually at Sidi Mustaba's house. So I'm not even at my house. I'm at Sidi Mustaba's house. And so we were doing some recordings all day today. And so that's why you see, if you can, that's why you see a green screen behind me.
Yeah, I was surprised. It's like movie production. Yeah, in Hollywood, I saw that.
Yeah, we got the full gamut here. I got all these lights around me, the green screen. We had the camera out, the microphone, the whole bit.
Oh, wow. So you have the entire team, they probably doing editing, stuff like that.
Yep, the editing is being done out of Pakistan. So.
What?
Yeah, we got yeah, exactly. We have some things coming.
Oh, it's big.
So again, I can't say I can't say exactly what, and I can't say exactly when, but we have some things taking place, inshallah.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We're trying to go to the next level with the Mecca Center, inshallah.
A big fan. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. So yeah. Like I said, I've been in Jersey City since like 10:30 this morning.
Wow, that's had been a very long time, almost 12 hours. You work so hard.
Yeah. So and we just finished up right before Living Islam. We actually thought that I was gonna have to come 2 days. Like I was gonna come today and to finish up on Monday, but alhamdulillah, we were able to finish everything today.
Assalamu alaikum. Are we gonna have a session during Ramadan?
So we will have Ramadan reminders through Ramadan. So the Living Islam in particular, no, but we will have reminders. I think it's going to be at 4 o'clock. I don't know if every day. I know mine are going to be at 4 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. And then I'm assuming that the other teachers during the week will probably have a similar schedule that it'll be about at 4 o'clock. And of course, yeah, this is all Eastern Standard Time. Uh, so but yeah, that's what we'll be doing in Ramadan, because essentially, um, once we get to Maghrib, everyone is going to be uh, uh, everyone's going to have, their different things that they're going to be doing, whether it's going to be iftar or, visiting others, or making their way to the masjid for Salat al-Isha and Tarawih. So, we do some daily reminders before iftar, but that's the only thing that we'll be having in Ramadan, inshallah.
Inshallah. And the reminders will be live or they'll be recorded.
Do we record them? They're going to be live. I just don't
It
remember
will be live.
Okay, so it's only going to be
Okay,
live.
inshallah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As you can see, like I'm only on the production side of, well, not the production. I'm only on the content side of things. I'm not necessarily on the production and the technical side of things. So like I have to ask myself, are we recording these, or
Yeah,
what
sorry,
was that
sorry.
time again?
It will be live, and we will have the recordings on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch, inshallah.
So there you go. That's your full official answer. So it's going to be live, and on our YouTube channel, the recordings can be played again.
It's
I think
also
Sister Leah had a
advisable.
question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it's also advisable that for you to be part of our WhatsApp group, because by every day by noontime we will remind you what is happening at 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So we also have the WhatsApp group. Uh, there's a Salam Ustad, Alaikum Salam. I may have asked this already. Yesterday was the 15th of Shaban, and said that you're forgiven of your sins if you don't hold a grudge for someone. So my question is, how to soften your heart towards others? One of the ways to try to soften your heart towards others is, like, if you want like the hard pill, if you want the hard pill way is that you think about the situation, meaning that the situation that is causing you to hold a grudge against someone, and you say to yourself, is this going to matter to me in my grave? Like, whatever it is that's bothering me about this person, is this going to be something that I'm going to be concerned about in my grave? And if it's not, then that is an indication that you just give it a miss. Like, don't worry about it. And then the other way is to reflect upon and remember what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said to us, and that um, the people who show mercy to the people in the earth will be shown mercy by the All Merciful. And so essentially what we're saying here in reference to this particular hadith is that the same way that for the most part all of us have wronged Allah in some capacity, that we've committed a sin that we knew we should not have done, we've missed out on an obligation that we knew that we needed to perform, and so on and so forth, and that we are hopeful that Allah is going to forgive us. Part of the way that we assist in Allah being more willing to forgive us is for us to be willing to forgive other people. And then the third thing that we can mention in that is that if we are willing to be people of forgiveness and pardoning, then that is a way of receiving the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is ultimately being entered into paradise. As the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned once to his companions that in is going to walk a person of paradise. And what was found out about that person was that he was a person that he didn't do anything extra. Like he didn't do like a lot of extra fasting or prayer or anything like that. But the one thing that he did do was that every night before he went to sleep, he removed from his heart any grudges that he held against anyone else. So those are three things that I can recommend to try to help to do that. You know, it's not necessarily easy, but the thing is that this is part of the aspect of tasawwuf, spirituality. And one of the things about spirituality is that, generally speaking, it's always easy to understand, but it's very hard to implement. But inshallah ta'ala, hopefully those things can be of benefit in terms of helping us to get to that point, inshallah. And Sister Alia, I know I heard you, so please go ahead. You can unmute yourself or write it in the chat.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. It was so good.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Everybody's so eager. I love it. I love it. So I had a question about congregational prayer, but then someone asked about grudges, and so I have to ask about that really quickly.
Mhm.
What if it's, with people that are like being disrespectful to Islam or to Allah, because that's like where people kind of, especially Muslims, we get a bit sensitive. So it's like before you go to bed at night, should you try to implement the practice of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and remove the grudge of someone that was speaking disrespectfully about Allah, Islam, or your practices? Are they included too?
So in a case like that, there is some detail in regards to that, but one of the things that from a practical standpoint that we can do in a situation like that is always remember that in general, we separate the action from the person. And so the thing is that, for example, I've asked this question before. And so the thing is that, for some people, even if I were to ask this question, like in this group tonight, someone might say yes. But like I've asked this question before, it might even been at a Living Islam gathering. I've asked a question like, how many people converted to Islam? And I would have, a certain amount of people raise their hands. And then I would ask the question, how many people actually hated Islam before they converted? And I remember there's a sister in one of the gatherings where I did this, and her hand stayed up. And so I gave that as an example. Is that just because a person is in a particular state right now doesn't mean that that's going to remain their state. One of the greatest example is look at Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu. Umar Khattab, he was considered to be of the people who was the most severe in his torment against Muslims. Look at what Umar did to that poor woman, is that he beat her until he got tired. And we have to understand, like, what does that mean? Umar is described as being over 7 feet tall, meaning that they used to say about him is that if he were to sit on a horse, his feet would actually drag in the sand. Like, that's a big man. And he was described as being thaqif fil lahm. He was described as being muscular. And on top of that, he was a championship wrestler. And it also mentions that he's the one that actually taught Khalid ibn Walid to wrestle. So he was a fit individual. So for him to beat a woman until he became tired, we can only imagine what that actually entails. And even after he did this, what did he say to her? He said, don't think that I stopped because I feel bad for you, but I only stopped because I became tired. Like to try to add insult to injury. And not only that, on the day that he became Muslim, what was he initially going out to do? On the day that he became Muslim, he was initially doing what? He was initially going out to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed his heart and he became the second greatest person to ever live outside of the prophets. So that's another thing to also keep in, to keep in mind is that just because a person is in a particular state at this moment does not mean that that's going to be, or that is their permanent state. They may hate Islam today, but they may love Islam tomorrow. And so that's a way of kind of dealing with it. And again, the aspect of separating between a person's actions and then themselves. Because most people, they hate Islam. What do they hate Islam? They don't actually hate Islam. They hate terrorism,
Mm-hmm.
or they hate the things that they see on CNN and Fox 5 and so on and so forth. And the thing is, at the end of the day, I can say the same thing. I hate that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
They're just associating all of that to be Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even in that, we can kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. Is that you're not really getting a true understanding of Islam. And so I can more or less understand why you hate those things. And then you can use it as a dawah opportunity as well. I mean, so from a practical standpoint, that those are some like I said, there's other things that we can say about that, but on this platform and in the time frame that we have right now, we won't necessarily get into that. But from like the immediate practical aspect, that's what I would say is that, use it as a means of dawah, and then also, you know, understand that this is a state that the person may be in right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be their permanent state.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Shukran. And then really quickly, I don't know if this could be really quickly, but you guys are on the topic of guys and gals, sisters and brothers. We're on the topic of congregational prayer. And I was just gonna say recently, I was somewhere. So like I'll make my sunnahs when I walk in. I try to, and I'll make salat. This is a Juma prayer.
Mhm.
And then after I will attempt to make tasbih prayer. But I was somewhere where after everybody prayed, I was in the sisters area, everybody prayed, and then they stood up, and then the imam, I don't know what they were saying, and then everybody was like Allahu Akbar 3 times, and then they sat back down, and then people started making 2 rakats afterwards, and I was like, wait, what's going on here? What's going on here? Like it just was like I was in another country, but it was just like I shouldn't say weird, but I was just like, well, what are they doing? What do they know that I don't know? Right? Because I started to make tasbih prayer, and then all of a sudden the email started, and I'm not fluent in Arabic. He started reciting the prayer. Everybody got up. I walked by 3 times, and I was like, okay, yeah. So, are you familiar with that?
Wait, where was this?
This was actually in Mecca.
In Mecca?
Yes,
So the
yes.
thing is that what it sounds like, what it might have been, is that sometimes what they do is that they pray what's called Salat al-Ghaib, which
Mm,
is basically the funeral prayer for a person that is deceased in absentia.
mm,
Or sometimes they'll pray Salat al-Janaza for people right after, particularly like in Juma. So it sounds like that's might have been the case. And so it sounds like it might have been a situation where they were announcing that they're praying, getting ready to pray Salat al-Janaza, and that you may just not have heard one of the takbirs, and actually it was 4 takbirs, and they were praying Salat
mm,
al-Janaza. So
mm.
that's what it sounds like. Because
Okay.
yeah, in Mecca and Medina, generally speaking, particularly for Jummah prayer, they often do pray either Salat al Ghaib, or because in the Hanbali school and the Shafi school, it's permissible to pray Salat al Ghaib, but also in sometimes it could be an actual funeral prayer, like meaning that the deceased is actually being prayed over. And so they do that a lot of times in the Haramain.
Okay. All right. I know it's closing, but yes, we're gonna touch base on that a little bit more.
No,
Alhamdulillah.
no problem. Is there a dua to say so anger is removed from your family?
Mm,
Um, I'm trying to think of any duas that I can think of specifically. Unfortunately, nothing is coming to my head as of right now. Um, but there is a book. It's been translated into English. It's called The Book of Remembrances. And it's an original work that was compiled by Imam Nawawi, where it has different afkar, different du'as to say at different occasions. So if a person were to get a copy of that book, um, then they might find a section in there that might have du'as that would be related to different occasions, like the occasion of getting angry. It's just that at the present moment, I can't think of anything specifically in terms of like prophetic du'as. The only thing that's coming to my mind is the prophetic injunction of la taghdab, don't become angry. But in general, what the ulama they say from a personal level is that if it's personal anger from yourself, then the Prophet ﷺ, what he recommended is that for one to say "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," because usually it's the shaitan that entices anger. So the initial emotion may come from you, like someone that does something to you, or something happens and it makes you become angry, and then the shaitan will try to feed off of that, meaning that the shaitan will try to give you every excuse of why you should be angry, and then ultimately why you should probably do something haram because of that anger. So one of the pieces of advice that the Prophet ﷺ gave was to say "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," and that also if you're standing up, to sit down, if you're sitting down, to lie down, and then also to go and make wudu as well. Because he mentioned to us that, again, the anger is often instigated by the shaitan, and the shaitan is made of fire, and so wudu is what puts fire out. So, these are all recommendations from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in regards to anger when it comes to ourselves. And but in particular, like, removing anger from your family in particular. Again, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but again, the Book of Remembrance, like, that's a book like every Muslim household should have, just in general. So you can't go wrong, even if you don't find a dua specific to the specific circumstance that you may be experiencing. That book is just kind of like a book that, in general, every Muslim, like, you essentially, what I'm saying is, like, you won't consider it to have been a waste in getting that book, even if the specific dua for the specific situation is not there. There's so many gems in that book. I mean, the whole book is gems, because all it is prophetic supplications for just about every situation that you can think of. So, inshallah, hopefully, if you were able to get a copy of that work, inshallah, it will have multiple different du'as that a person can say in all different types of situations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may place you in, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you. And then just in closing, in relation to that particular question, is that any sincere du'a that you say from your heart, that is also a prophetic dua, because the whole nature of dua is that we're supposed to be trying to be sincere. And so any sincere dua that you make from your heart, then inshallah, that will also be of benefit. And if you're able to say it in the middle of the night, before Fajr time, that is a time the dua is answered, and that is a time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, who is there to ask of me, so I may give to them. So that is also something to keep in mind as well. So jazakallahu khairan for everyone for coming out tonight. We always appreciative of the conversations that we have, even sometimes when we start off kind of slow, but usually by the end of it, we start to pick up. So again, jazakallah khair for everyone for coming out tonight. Inshallah, the next time that we will be together for this program will be after Ramadan. So that will be in April, inshallah. So please keep us in your du'as during these blessed times that are coming upon us. Again, please look out for our different Ramadan programs that we will be having coming up. We have the pre-Ramadan program, as you mentioned. We also have the daily reminders during Ramadan with the different teachers at the Mecca Center. So inshallah, please look out for those things. And inshallah, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep you in his care. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الله سبحانه وتعالى أعلم وهو حسبنا ونعم الوكيل. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.